Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Daily on the Gruely True Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by Alex Ramos and Jackie Richardson at the Retired Boxers Foundation. Also, the Sheridan Report. You can find Bobby Sheridan at SheridanReport.com or the SheridanReport.com on the internet or at Sheridan Report on Twitter. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. And right now I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preissert. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm always doing well, man. I'm excited to talk some boxing because you know it seems like we got a lot to talk about. No, it kind of seems
really.
I've heard a number of guys complaining about this, and it just seems like there's a big lull in the action, and we're just kind of sitting around we're sitting on our hands waiting for something to pop off. But let's do what we usually do.
All right. I had a source earlier today in the UK that told me that they think that Tyson Fury is fighting Dillian Whyte. You told me about an hour ago Chris Henderson posted something about he'd heard the same thing. What's your take on the possibility of Dillian Whyte signing with ESPN, and do you think that could possibly be Fury's next opponent?
I don't know, man. To me, that seems like a bit of a risk if you got... I don't know. Again, it just seems like a big risk if you have a potential Wilder and then a potential Joshua fight down the road. I don't know. That it would make some sense in how well it would sell. I mean, we're talking about two guys who are stationed in the UK. We know how well that's been going for them, especially in terms of heavyweights lately. It would be a big sell. It would do good numbers. A lot of people would tune in for that. And not only that, it would signify, if Fury could get by him, it would signify another significant victory on his record. I mean, Whyte isn't anything special, but, in terms of what he's been able to accomplish lately, you wouldn't be too hard done by putting him as a top 5 guy at the moment. So, either way, even if he doesn't get the fight and Whyte does sign with ESPN, he's going to be he's going to be in that stable, so he is going to be there if Wilder is not. So, even if Fury gets a softer touch here and, then again, the Wilder fight for some reason doesn't come off, he's got a backup plan. So it's hard to tell. I mean, that very well may be what's going to happen. Maybe ESPN is a bit like DAZN in the sense that they need these guys to put on the good fights so they can get some subscribers, though, of course, it doesn't seem like they're, pushing them too hard with a lot of the mismatches that they've been putting on. And even like, John said on Sunday that you look at ESPN's schedule and it's pretty poor. There's not a whole lot to look forward to. So I don't know. Again, to me, it kind of seems up in the air. For me, it's like, why would you risk a fight against Whyte if you have, bigger potential fights down the road? And we know how the heavyweight division is. A guy like Whyte could potentially knock off a guy like Fury. I mean, most people would favor Fury, obviously. Whyte is not that much better than a guy like Chisora, though he is better. And, we saw that Tyson Fury was able to outbox Chisora, pretty easily in their rematch. So maybe, again, it does good numbers. It makes some financial sense. But again, with big fights lingering, I don't know. I'm not completely convinced of that one.
Yeah, but I think the end game could be Joshua and Fury, not Fury and Wilder. And if Wilder is stuck fighting Dominic Breazeale, no matter what happens there, that's not exciting anybody. But if Anthony Joshua comes over and can put an ass whipping on Jarrell Miller at Madison Square Garden, and Tyson Fury can take care of Dillian Whyte, I think you've just built Fury and Joshua into a massive fight.
Yeah, exactly, because I think Fury has built his brand well enough in the United States. Again, you'd like to see him continue building here. And like I've said elsewhere, I think Fury could be a big sell in the United States because of his heritage. Sorry. And so that
what the hell was that? Have you been hitting a nose candy?
No, man, it's like you put anybody who's got their kids in daycare,
Oh
they
yeah,
just
they're
come
sick
home
all the
with
time.
fevers. Oh my God, man! And I was doing a good job of staying away from it, but after having two boys back to back with fevers and them coughing in your face 24/7, it was just inevitable that I caught something too. So it's not going to be a lasting thing for me. It's pretty minor compared to what they had, but yeah, I just got a little bit here and
That's
there
all
that
right.
I got to deal with.
But
But
let's get back
yeah,
to
but
this
the
because I think in the end, let's face it, for anybody that thinks Deontay Wilder beat Tyson Fury, well, you're obviously one of those nut huggers off the Wilder tree. And Tyson Fury to me and Anthony Joshua was the biggest fight to be made. And it's not the biggest
yeah.
fight to be made just because of money-wise in England, which probably does make it the biggest money fight. Because let's face it, if Wilder and Joshua fought right now, I don't know how big of a draw that is here in this country. But I know how big of a draw Joshua and Fury is in Great Britain.
Yeah, you're right. Well, and I think if you believe Wilder won that fight, you probably watched Dante's Boxing Nation or some other. I mean, yeah, I had that 9-3, and 9-3 actually seemed to be about the median score.
I had it
If you,
9-3, and I think 9-3 might have been pushing it by a round because even and this is the thing because I had some moron commented on Facebook the other day. We were having an argument, and he's like, "Well, the fight should have been stopped as soon as he got knocked down because they've stopped fights for less." And my whole point is this: if Deontay Wilder was the great killer, the great puncher, maybe the greatest puncher in heavyweight history, as these idiots have tried to claim, he would have just finished Tyson Fury if he was in that much trouble. But correct me if I'm wrong here, there was like a minute and a half left in that round, if not more, and Tyson Fury held his own, if not won, the rest of that round.
yeah, I agree. Well, and if somebody's saying, well, they've stopped fights for less, okay, well, they haven't stopped fights for that much as well. I mean, if you can't really generalize how fights are stopped. I mean, certain referees see different things at different times,
Well, and the whole
you know
point is
that
this, Jeremiah. If the dude gets up and he's fine, the referee made the right call.
exactly, and he did make the right call. So ultimately, that's all that matters. We can sit here and talk. We can talk conjecture about whether they should or shouldn't have. The fact is that he made the right call, and we got a better fight, and because of it. So, but I think you're right. You're using your foresight to look down the road and see what might happen, and you may be right, and I actually would prefer that, to be honest with you. To me and to most other people, again, just like I've brought up before, and I'll keep bringing it up, the big rankings organizations felt that Fury won the fight. There was not a single dissenter for transnational. Everybody was on board with him being ranked number 2, right behind Joshua, because we saw him clearly beat the number 2 guy in the world. So his position is earned. And again, I think Fury can sell better in the USA than Wilder can. So if, like you said, Joshua comes over here and he beats up Miller, gets a stoppage, something, some highlight reel knockout, especially because he's proven tough so far. I mean, he hasn't really fought a lot of big bangers, but he just seems like one of those guys who's going to keep coming at you and just has a little staying power. So if Fury were to fight Whyte and beat him clearly, and Joshua, like you said, beats Miller clearly, I think that's a fight to make. I really do. I mean, it's a bigger sell than Wilder would be. We know how rabid the UK fans are, and that would just generate real big money. I mean, and whoever comes out of that on top is really going to do themselves a service in terms of selling power in the future. And if Fury happened to win that fight against Joshua, I think he has better potential to be a global superstar than maybe even Joshua does. But I don't know. It's always tough to say. I just, I like, and I think a lot of other people like how genuine Fury is. As I've touched on before, his message just seems like that more of the common man. So I wouldn't doubt that at all. That very well could be the end game.
Yeah, and the thing here is this. It turns in if they fight towards the end of this year, fight number 1, fight number 2 will probably come about June. And then all the Deontay Wilder fans can scream that Tyson Fury ducked him, which he didn't. Tyson Fury won the first fight. He did what he should have done if this turns out this way. Now, if he fights Dillian Whyte and then follows up that by fighting some guy that's not that good, then you may have a point. But as of right now, there's no point here because if he ends up with that fight, and I've had this feeling for a while, you know that, even November or December, I said that I thought that we would see Fury Joshua before we would see a rematch with Wilder because the money's not there with Wilder. Not like it is with Joshua. And Fury can fight Dillian Whyte, make good money, and then turn this into a global spectacle when you get to September, October, November. And, I mean, if Fury and Joshua are impressive enough, who's to say it's not going to happen in Vegas? More money to be made in Vegas than there is fighting in the UK. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands of people you can put in. Those casinos pay really nice site fees for big fights.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Fury, beating Wilder in most people's eyes and Joshua trying to build his brand stateside, I mean, that would make some sense. I mean, they wouldn't be virgins to the territory at that point. So again, that would make some sense. But if you had Fury versus Whyte and then Fury taking a soft touch and, later on in the year, and then he fights Joshua, in the spring or early summer of next year, I mean, Wilder fans are going to say, oh, he ducked him and whatnot, but they already fought. Yeah. They already fought. I don't even know why after that result you would think that Fury would have an inkling of fear for Wilder because to my eyes, and I think to most other people's, Fury will probably beat him even easier because we're talking about a Fury that didn't have a whole lot of experience, no experience against top level opposition since his comeback. I mean, he's beaten up guys like Seferi, and he's coming back and in most people's eyes clearly beating the number 2 guy. So there's no fear there, but he did just sign a big deal with ESPN. He's weighing his options a little bit more. And if if Joshua's the end game, that's a better end game than Wilder is. And it makes more financial sense. So how can you really blame the guy for that?
Yeah, and when you look at this, I want to remind people, if you have any comments during the show, you can go on Twitter, tweet at Grueling Truth, because we just got a message from Jerome in Baltimore, Maryland, who said, should I read this word for word?
It's up to you, man.
All right, Jerome says, shit, man, Fury don't want more of that smoke. So there you go. That is very well said. A well-formed sentence.
Well, I mean, I will say that, at least Jerome is listening in, and I appreciate that much.
Thank you, Jerome.
But I don't see how you can justify Fury being afraid of him when the vast majority of educated boxing fans saw Fury win that fight. And Fury
and if you get knocked down like that and you're afraid, you usually stay down, right?
Yeah, of course you do. I mean, that would be high time to pack it in if the guy didn't have any heart. And that's him getting up and finishing the round as he did is part of what appealed to so many people. I mean, he showed that he had a little grit in him when he could have very well packed it in. This is a guy who had his heart questioned, because of the things he had done in the past. But no, he got up and got it done. And I just don't see how you could say that he has any fear for Wilder at all. To me, this is just camp politics. And, I don't like it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to see the rematch. But to most of us, Fury won the fight. Joshua's a bigger prize. It makes sense.
All right. Also, another quick question on this from Justin in Fairfax, Virginia. And once again, thanks everybody for listening. He wants to know that if this was to happen and that is the fight down the road, where does Wilder go in the winter or the fall?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, honestly. I mean, it seems as if Dominic Breazeale is being lined up. I mean,
I think Justin's talking about after Dominic Breazeale because I think he's supposed to fight May the 18th. I assume that's Breazeale, but then who does he fight in September or October? I think is the question.
Okay, yeah. So I was trying to lead into that because I was going to point to what we talked about earlier, where Dillian Whyte signing with ESPN seems more likely that he's going to fight Tyson Fury, unless for some reason Wilder actually jumps on board. Because Wilder has said in recent statements that he's kind of like a promotional free agent, and he's got some freedom there. I don't really know, but I think if he's kind of being boxed out here, I think you get Brazil, his quote unquote mandatory early, and then I think maybe you get Konaki in the fall. And the reason I say that is because he's a PBC guy. He's exciting, but he's not particularly tall. So stylistically, I don't think there would be too much fear on Wilder's part. And again, there would just be a PBC guy who's fairly highly ranked, who could kill some time, and I think provide a pretty good test in the meantime while Wilder is playing the waiting game.
Yeah, and see, the sad thing, though, is this. Then what's he do in the spring? He's got to find another guy. He's got to dig another body up to fight.
Yeah, no, I know. So it's tough to see how all this plays out. I mean, I know a lot of people are clamoring for the rematch between Fury and Wilder, but as we already talked about, if Joshua is the end game, he's worth more than a Wilder win. Again, most people saw Fury come out on top there, so it would almost make sense. I mean, if you're Fury and you honestly believe that you had won that fight, it makes some sense to just move on. But I'm like most fans as well, right? I'd rather not see these guys killing time with stay busy fights. I really just want to see the best of the best fight one another. And it sucks because I know, Mike, you and I were of the same mentality. We just want to see these guys get it on, right? No excuses. But unfortunately, we have to play the political game like all these other guys. So you have to worry about who's siding with who's promoted by who's managed by who. Again, ideally, I would love to see, the Wilder Fury rematch maybe now and then, Joshua in the fall. But it just doesn't look like it's going to happen.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Gervonta Davis. He was arrested today in Fairfax County. Wonder if Justin knows him. But he was arrested in Fairfax County for something that happened in a mall February the 17th at an ATM machine. He had an alleged run-in with a man. Police say officers at the scene spoke with the alleged victim but did not file charges at the time of the incident. I mean, so we don't really know what's going on here. But this is, I think, the fear with Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of people have been questioning this sort of stuff for years now. I mean, this is not his first run-in with the law, and we all hope that it'll be his last. I mean, actually, when we were looking at his last effort, and he had to have a second try to make weight, and a lot of people didn't give him too much stick for it. But you see these little things time and time again, and there are patterns to the behavior, and you just hope that he doesn't mess it up completely because, you would hope at the very least that he would be able to get something done kind of like Adrian Broner, like maybe, he never turns out to be the very best in his particular weight class, but, because of his style or maybe his personality, he earns some decent money along the way. But I mean, I think the guy's only 24 years old. And, when you look at guys like this, you just hope to see some maturity. You don't want to see this sort of stuff, especially when you see a guy who has a lot of promising ability. I mean, he's explosive. I mean, he's southpaw. He's big for his division. He's quick. He could easily move up to 135 and not really lose a thing. It's still hard to say whether or not he has a good chin or, whether his heart will stand a tough test. But, just on the eye test, he looks like a damn good guy. And I honestly think he could be the champion at 130 pounds. I mean, put him in with Miguel Berchelt, and I think he has a damn good shot of being the man in the division. But it's just little stuff like this that just seems to pop up for, time and time again. The guy just really, I don't know exactly what he's doing. I don't hang out with him. I'm not in the inn. I'm not rubbing elbows with some of his friends or family or any of that, but it just seems as if, either he's hanging out with the wrong crowd or he just is predisposed to this sort of stuff. Maybe he grew up in the streets and, just, I don't know, can't get the streets out of him. It's hard to say with these kind of guys, but again, I thought he was starting to mature there, because they were talking about getting him in the ring quickly after his last fight. And I don't understand why some promoters, especially Mayweather, who's probably real familiar with these sort of stories and people, that you do like Mike Tyson had to do. You just keep them in the ring constantly so you keep them out of trouble. Just do the same thing with Gervonta Davis. I mean, this is a guy who could kick butt, 4, 5, 6 times a year, and I think just be fine, So that would be my strategy. Just get the guy in the ring as often as possible.
Well, on the one side, we don't even know if it's true. So this could be some dude just trying to make some money off Gervonta Davis's name. I hope it's not true, because I think Gervonta Davis is one of the few guys that can give Lomachenko some problems. I think he's a really talented fighter. My opinion on him is completely flipped in the last 2 years. I think he's been very impressive from the Pedraza fight on. So hopefully it's not an issue. Now, we're going to move on to a couple, looks like DAZN signings. Murat Gassiev looks like he's going to sign with DAZN. It has not been, Hearn's not said that it's been done yet, but it looks like Mike Coppinger kind of reported this today. And I would think if he's going with DAZN, they're moving him to heavyweight.
Yeah, no, that actually looks like pretty good positioning on his part. I mean, not only is he in a good position at heavyweight, he's also in a good position at cruiserweight if he chooses to stay. Maybe he'll hang around and fight the winner of the second WBSS tournament at cruiserweight. I actually wouldn't mind watching him fight Breidis. With Usyk moving a 200 plus, I think that's a good fight to be made. So I think there's a lot of potential at cruiserweight as well. But seeing as eventually he is going to move up to heavyweight, it's like you're positioning, potential title defenses for Anthony Joshua in the future, because truth be told, that division, it needs some refreshing. A lot of people are optimistic about the way the division is going.
Yeah, but it's not that good. The fact that we're sitting there figuring out who Wilder could fight that would be a threat just because Fury's fighting, if Fury could possibly fight Joshua, that tells us the division's not in great shape. I mean, you've got a bunch of guys that have some potential, but for every 10 guys that got potential, you usually get 1 or 2 really good fighters out of it. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I think the best hope for the heavyweight division is guys like Dubois, Nathan Gorman, Efe Ajagba, guys like that. But once again, not all those guys are going to be successful. So in the end, I think Gassiev could probably be a fringe top 10 contender. But in the end, a year from now, 2 years from now, he's fighting Anthony Joshua and making $10 million. That's not so bad.
No, it's not so bad at all. And I wanted to talk about the state of the heavyweight division quickly as well. And it's we also have to examine these. Not only do you have to venture outside the political alliances, but you have to just take some of these guys at face value. I mean, you look at Ortiz. He didn't look particularly good against Christian Hammer. He's on his way out, right? He's not going to be around for that much longer. And actually, that actually makes some sense. And I want to go back to the question. Luis Ortiz, a rematch.
Too. Yeah.
That very well may be in the cards if Konaki isn't up for it at the moment. So there's another possibility. But Ortiz is old. Guys like Alexander Povetkin are old. Kubrat Pulev is 37 as well. He's on his way out. As soon as Joshua probably beats Miller, Miller's going to drop down the rankings. Brazil is probably going to be knocked out he's probably going to be knocked out of the top 10 if he's in it with any organization if Wilder beats him. So you're going to need some of these guys to fill some of the vacancies. And there are a number of interesting prospects. I think I talked about this on Sunday, or it was the Sunday before last, because John, is of the opinion that it is going to be a good heavyweight era. But you look at some of these guys like, Andy Ruiz Jr., he's never going to be a serious test. Joe Joyce, I don't think he's ever going to be a serious test. Sergey Kuzman, I like the guy, but he doesn't have a lot of power. He's probably not going to be a serious test. So even on when you talk about the older guys and then you look at some of the younger guys coming through the ranks, there doesn't look to be a whole lot of serious competition yet. Again, we do have to wait a few years and see how these guys develop and progress, because there are a lot of pitfalls, especially in the heavyweight division. I mean, we've seen prospects, especially at heavyweight, because one punch can change things. Yeah. These guys are even more likely to be knocked off. So I think if you position Gassiev, I think he could definitely be a top 10 guy. I'd favor him over, somebody like Andy Ruiz Jr., or Brazil, or even Konaki.
Come on, Konaki'd wreck his ass.
I don't knock
my Polish guy. I don't think Gassiev's that good. I think he's all right. Well, moving up in weight, I think could be a problem. I think Ruiz would give him problems. I think Brazil would give him problems. I don't think he's going to be successful at heavyweight, not like Usyk will be. I don't think he's going to carry the power. I actually think Usyk will punch harder at heavyweight because they got some really good steroids in Russia.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to bring this up off here.
Because they do it in the United States too. Because Evander Holyfield hit harder at heavyweight too.
Oh yeah, of course. And you look at his deltoids and whatnot and how they developed. I mean, Evan. No, but you're right, man. I actually watched. You ever heard of Icarus?
Yes.
Okay, so it's worth watching if you haven't seen it.
Documentary, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I ended up watching that from front to back the other night, and it's pretty serious business. I mean, this Russian state-sponsored program. Of course, the difference between that and so many other cases is that the Russian government is doing it. They're the ones getting you on the program, changing the results and whatnot. But, like you said, Mike, I mean, just about all these guys are on it anyway. So, it's kind of a level playing field in that regard. But I do think Usyk's saving grace is his boxing ability. I mean, if he can't punch that hard at heavyweight, I think he'll be able to outbox most of these guys. I mean, he's got damn good footwork for a cruiserweight. So I don't think Gassiev is going to be some world beater, but I do think, he stays in shape. He's got good power. He's got good technique. His feet are a bit slow, but I think comparatively, I think he matches up just fine. But again, it's another potential fight for Anthony Joshua or maybe Michael Hunter or, some of these other guys under the DAZN banner, but it's a good move.
Oh, yeah, you can always match him with Povetkin. There's a lot of guys there, so if you're going to be a heavyweight, you might as well do it DAZN. When I look at this, now they're saying Triple G is going to finalize with DAZN also. Does that mean maybe we get Triple G and Canelo in September?
I know we've speculated about this before, but it kind of seems that way. I was listening to Michael Montero earlier to see what he had to say about the whole thing, and he seems to be of the opinion that it will happen. And it just makes some sense because if from what I've heard that Golovkin is being offered less than ESPN is offering him, so it seems as if the Canelo fight or potentially Daniel Jacobs, though we know he's going to be hard pressed to get a decision against Canelo. It seems as if that's probably the route they're going to go. I mean, DAZN, not only do you want to be with him if you're a heavyweight, though ESPN is obviously doing some good stuff too, but more so as a middleweight. I mean, they've got Entrada, Jacobs is fighting over there, Canelo, and now possibly Golovkin. And from what I've heard, and I thought this was pretty interesting, and I can't verify the details, but I did see this from a credible source that what DAZN is offering Golovkin is a 3-fight contract or something like that, right? I don't know the specific details, but they're offering him a certain fight contract, with a certain amount of money. But I guess they're also offering him, a stake in the company? Something like that, something where he's actually invested in DAZN itself. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's not an offer you often see, especially with boxers. So I just thought that was one interesting aspect of it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Golovkin, Canelo 3 in the fall. I mean, it is a lot of speculation, but it makes some sense. I mean, obviously financially it's going to do very well. Fans will tune into that, and and it bodes well for Canelo Alvarez, because I think Golovkin's just even further past his prime at this point. You're fighting the guy tooth and nail, nearer to his best, and now that he's gotten older and been in a few tough fights that are going to take more tread off his tires than yours, it just does make some sense there. And I think there is potential that Canelo could even stop Golovkin, depending on how far he's gone. I mean, again, I don't think he's going to show up and be shot. I just don't think he's going to be as good as he was in the first or second fight. So I think there's potential for a stoppage there on Canelo's part. I mean, I know a lot of us wouldn't like to see that, but it's just a fact of life that Golovkin's been past his best for a few years now, and it just, this all plays to Canelo.
All right, let's go ahead. We'll talk about two more things before we wrap it up. And this one is this. I know that we're both already really excited about Vasyl Lomachenko defending against Anthony Corolla at the Staples Center in L.A. in April. But now the card just became a mega card, because Gilberto Ramirez is going to make his light heavyweight debut, and it's against Tommy Karpency. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Two high-quality matchups like that on the same card, Jeremiah.
Oh my God, dude! Well, hold on. Is that pay-per-view or no? That's just on ESPN.
It's $5,000 on pay-per-view, so I'm saving my money up.
No, it should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was asking if it was on pay-per-view, not because I wasn't aware, but just because it really should be. I mean, that card is.
I know. I mean, Lomachenko, Corolla, and Ramirez, Karpency, it doesn't get much better than that.
No, that card is stacked, man. So I guess
I bet you anything, Aragon Garcia will write a lengthy article about how great of a card that is, too.
Well, he'll surely write a lengthy article about how good Ramirez is, but Karpency
is close to being Ezra Charles-like.
Jersey Joe Karpency. Yeah, no, Karpency is he's a serviceable guy. I mean, I think he knocked Alexander Gvozdyk down, and he upset Chad Dawson when Chad Dawson was trying to make a comeback. So he's not a bad fighter, but it's like so many other fights. It's just the end result is just set in stone. And I saw somebody post on Twitter today about Daniel Dubois' career and how big the odds are in every single fight that he's been in. And I couldn't help but think about just the main events of these fights. It's not just Danny Dubois being in mismatch after mismatch.
Dubois only had 11 fights or something. So, I mean, you can't really give him any shit about it. But you can give shit to Gilberto Ramirez, who very rarely fights anybody that is a live threat to him.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, his resume, by and large, rests on two fights over Jesse Hart and an old Arthur Abraham. I mean, Vlasov was, good too. But this is a guy who's been ranked in the top 10 for years, and he really hasn't beaten any notable opposition. So, and I still have yet to hear any clarity in that whole WBO thing with Billy Joe Saunders and Ramirez. So, I don't know what that's all about either. But the result is set in stone. I mean, it's really just a matter of whether or not Ramirez can stop Karpency. That's really what you got to hope for at this point, is that Ramirez can stop him and, again, build his brand a little bit, because, Ramirez fighting at higher levels, he hasn't really been able to stop a lot of guys unless they've been real overmatched. So I don't know what else to say, but, just get your wallets ready. It's worth it.
All right. Now, Oscar De La Hoya, we brought up last night how they could fight for him, and Canelo may want to fight Floyd Mayweather Jr. Today he said that he would like for Alvarez to fight either Floyd Mayweather, Andre Ward, or Gennady Golovkin. So, do you think maybe Oscar's garter's on too tight now?
Well, I'd like to know how much coke he's doing.
Dude, I'm sorry,
I don't think he ever
Andre
got.
Ward, if he's anywhere near what he was at 175 pounds, I think would smack the shit out of Canelo.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I really
they're not
don't.
that stupid.
No, that is much too big a risk for Canelo. I mean, why would you even bother? It doesn't even make any sense. I mean, the world is pretty much Canelo's oyster at this point. I mean, he's got everything. He's got everything in his favor. I mean, with this huge DAZN deal, I mean, most people recognize that he's likely to get even more favorable scorecards. I mean, he was getting them in the past, and again, he's a good fighter, no doubt about that. I don't mean to trash Canelo. He is a top-notch fighter. He's very skilled, and I don't dislike him on a personal level, but it's just so clear the way boxing politics is that there's so much money backing him anymore that it just wouldn't make any sense for Golden Boy to go that route. Why bring Andre Ward out of retirement for a fight that you will likely lose? And they've even talked about Sergey Kovalev. Actually, Oscar De La Hoya said, what was it, yesterday or the day before, that he wants Canelo Alvarez to be the first 4-division champion and from Mexico. And okay, first off, there has never been a 4-division champion from Mexico
anywhere,
ever.
Has there?
No.
It's hard to tell with all
Pacquiao.
champions. It's hard to figure it out. Yeah, Pacquiao.
Pacquiao,
but this is the thing also. As Oscar said, I know Canelo would be a big favorite to beat Andre Ward because against Kovalev, it was apparent that his legs were gone. And he was resigned to holding, wrestling, and throwing short punches from the inside. I don't know about that because I think Andre Ward, the one thing I can say about Ward is this. He's beat a high level of competition, and even though he's getting older, if he can move it all, we know Canelo has trouble with that style.
Well, and I think I don't even know if it matters that much, to be honest with you, because Andre Ward, I don't think he needs his legs to be a very good fighter. I mean, he's crafty, man. A lot of people don't like him, and I wasn't really a fan of him when he was fighting either. I mean, with the whole Super 6 tournament, he had to fight in the U.S. all the time, and he's come across as a little bit of a diva at times, but I think he's so crafty and his boxing brain is so good that he doesn't really need his legs in full to beat you clearly. I mean, we saw what he did with Mikkel Kessler. He didn't use his legs a ton there. I mean, he roughed Kessler up on the inside. That was part of his strategy against Kovalev. He didn't think Kovalev could infight. And, he would rough him up a little bit, body punch good. Ward is a damn excellent fighter. It just wouldn't make much sense for them to do that. But I want to talk about that 4-division champion stuff is there have been real 4-division champions in boxing, but what Canelo is, or what Oscar De La Hoya is essentially saying is no Mexican has won 4 major titles in 4 divisions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Eric Morales won a title at 122, 126, 130, and I think 140, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got a little handout there at 140 and won an alphabet trinket. Marquez won titles at, 126?
I was talking about a real 4-division champion.
No. And I was too. That's why I didn't name these guys. That's why I didn't name these guys. But I'm trying to show Oscar De La Hoya's ignorance on 2 playing fields because Eric Morales has already accomplished what he thinks. Right, by his standard, Eric Morales, I think, has already accomplished that, and maybe even Marquez didn't end up doing that. But so Oscar or Canelo Alvarez would not be the first.
Lie and tell the truth, lie and spread lies just to make.
He's more like Bob Arum every day.
Yeah, he's the same thing as Bob Arum because this is the thing. 99% of these promoters, when they get into the game, want to be different. They tell you they're different. And 2 years later, they're not anymore. They're just like what they preached against when they first got into it.
I know, and that's what's so disappointing about Oscar De La Hoya is, as a fighter, even if you didn't like him, you could pay him his proper respect because exactly. I mean, he fought Ike Corte, Mosley twice. I mean, the guy just was not when he was past his best. I mean, he's getting beat up by Pacquiao and fighting Floyd Mayweather pretty close. I mean, the guy took chances that as a golden boy, he didn't really need to. He could have done more like Roy Jones and taken a softer schedule and, milked more paydays out of it. But he went out there and got it. And when he first entered the game for Golden Boy, when he first started Golden Boy Promotions, I was optimistic. I'm like, okay, well, this is a guy who understands a very simple concept that we talk about time and time again on the show, that fighting the best is the most efficient way of generating the biggest paydays and garnering a big legacy for yourself. But he's shown that he's willing to go down Floyd Mayweather route if he has to. He'll protect guys, he'll lie for guys, he'll bullshit his way through press conferences. It's just unfortunate. I mean, he's even writing public letters. I can't remember Bob Arum or Don King, and maybe I'm wrong about Don King, but I can't ever remember those guys writing public letters condemning a lot of the public, right? When the second second Canelo Golovkin fight was over with, he writes an open letter to people who felt that Golovkin won the fight, essentially like, hey, you don't know what you talk about. Come on, man. Then he attacks Floyd Mayweather and whatnot, and that's all good for show and whatever, but it's not the kind of stuff, it's not the kind of behavior you want to see out of a big time promoter.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight, if that's all right with you, Jeremiah, and we'll be back tomorrow night. Jeremiah, you want to tell everybody where they can find us?
Absolutely. So wherever you listen to podcasts is wherever you can find us: iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, YouTube, any of these places. And if you see us there, rate, comment, subscribe. And as I say at the end of every show too, give us some feedback. If you want to see some different participation levels from, in some aspect of the sport, or you want us to integrate a new section or whatever it may be, whatever enhances your listening experience, we're willing to take that feedback and do what we can to help. So just let us know. But find us wherever you can and rate us wherever you can.
All right, guys, and remember, we're not the only podcast on The Grueling Truth, even though we are daily, and really we're Sunday through Friday now, 6 days a week with Inside Boxing Weekly and Inside Boxing Daily. You can also get The Last Round once a week, The Neutral Corner with Michael Montero, John Responte, and Dennis Taylor with the Ringside Boxing Show. And that show this week, they had Teofimo Lopez. So make sure you check out all of our content. We also have a Legends show, which in the past year or so, our guests have included George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Mike McCollum, James Toney, Jerry Cooney, even guys like Chuck Wepner, Ron Stander. So make sure you check us out. Give us a like. Help us keep this ship afloat and the train rolling. But we are going to get off here for now. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at TGTN Boxing or at Grueling Truth. Find us on Facebook. Give us a like there also. And, of course, you can listen to all of our shows on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Jeremiah Preissert, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.